player either takes control or the other, one way or the other. There's no stalemates normally around that turn 7 or 8 in this matchup. One player normally is very much winning at that point.
Yes, and Warma is running the Arcane Intellect list, not messing around with dragons, no Arcane Breath, and no Cobalt Spellkin. He's playing a natural Conjurer's Calling alongside that Arcane Intellect, which, having a natural Conjurer's Calling in your deck can be pretty effective against Druid in particular, since you do then have that out of just turbo discounting a Mana Giant and just landing a quick Conjurer's Calling very, very early in the matchup to be able to run away with it. So see if that can stand him in good stead in this matchup.
Yeah, and Bozzzton on this Druid, only running the 1 Lake Thresher, 1 Teacher's Pet, double Twilight Runner, means that there's much less of a consistent response to when Mage can play tempo, and go early, go a bit wide on board. It's way less consistent with just the 1 Lake Thresher, as you can see now, as we go into Mulligans, available to him off a potential Guardian Animals, which again, if that comes down and say it's 1 Runner and 1 Teacher's Pet, that might be enough for Warma to stay in control of one of those early games. But now we get into this Mulligan Sottle. Sorcerer's Apprentice Magic Trick Giant looks pretty good to me, but so does a ton of ramp.
Whoa, holds on to the Sorcerer's Apprentice, but the Overgrowth comes in. The Mana Giant just comes back from Warma. The game is insisting that Warma draw Evocation and play a Mana Giant on turn 4 this game, even if he doesn't want to.
He actually had the magic trick as well for his first draw, so he just ends with a very similar opening hand.
Unlucky.
Look at all this ramp here from Bozzzton, though. What is the path here for Bozzzton? So how does he manage this, almost too much ramp in his opening hand?
I'll tell you when he draws a dragon. There we go. Okay, can you work it out now?
I still want you to verbally explain it to me.
Coin Breath of Dreams, you then have Wild Growth available, you then have Overgrowth available. You just curve it out naturally starting this turn.
Sounds good. Crystal Power, honestly, doesn't look like a good draw right now, but having just a spot answer to some of the early tempo minions that can come down, minions that act as tempo in this matchup with the Solarian, for example, here, or even just a hard-cast Sorcerer's Apprentice, which I'd be a little bit surprised to see from Warma.
It might be a touch ambitious, yeah.
And this is Sol and myself were talking a little bit about Apprentice before we even started the show while we were watching APAC. And this is one of the situations that makes me feel uncomfortable about keeping it. And I'm not saying this is wrong by any means, but this is one of those awkward spots where you're like, okay, when does Apprentice come down? And if it's in another 4 turns, then it just makes the mulligan feel bad, whether it was correct or not, right?
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So, we were having this discussion. It was largely inspired by Alan in APAC throwing away Sorcerer's Apprentices with reckless abandon. And I was talking to Raven about it, and he was like, yeah, but if you play it early, it might end up dying. Well, that's the thing. You can wait until turn 5, turn 6 to play your Sorcerer's Apprentice. And that's not unique. This is not the first deck that's kept a 5-drop. Decks keep Jandis right now in certain matchups, right? Sorcerer's Apprentice is a much better card than Jandis Barrel when it does the thing that it does. So just because you're keeping it doesn't signal an intention to play it on turn 2 or turn 3 or do anything particularly rapid with it. It ends up coming down on turn 5, 6, 7, whatever. That's still better than just not drawing Sorcerer's Apprentice all game.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes the deck very difficult, right? Because there are games in which you play 1 drop on 1, 2 drop on 2, 3 drop on 3, and just curve out as mage, right? And it feels great. You're like, this is so powerful. I have this, and then the big backup of the giants, the spells, and so on. And I think that's what can make it muddy the water a little bit on how and when to play an apprentice.
Right.
You see here, though, the Shambhala has come down here from Warma, but Bozzzton does have at least a reasonable response here, if not a powerful Druid turn, a powerful enough turn to not let this Shambhala run away with the game.
Yeah, the problem now is that Bozzzton is only really now for the first turn when he gets to play again, taking advantage of the ramp that he's played this game, right? He floated 4 mana that turn, which means he might as well have passed turn 4 instead of playing Overgrowth up until this point, right? So,
speaking of which,
yeah, now he actually gets to start having some impact on the game, but because he hasn't used the mana he ramped into over the last couple of turns, he's actually not that far ahead, and he's now just having to sort of play one big slow 9-drop into a board that's already contesting it.
Yeah, and at the moment he does not have one of the cards that can actually be helpful in this matchup from Malygos Druid, which is just a raw swipe against a Jandis turn, is actually normally so powerful, but it doesn't have access to that. So is this a point where Bozzzton has to consider the Alexstrasza along with a Moonfire here, or do you think that's a little bit too risky if it goes wrong?
Where are you Moonfiring, Raven?
Well, do you think it's a little bit too risky if it goes wrong? I would Moonfire the Taunt, personally, and mainly because if it goes right, it's great, but also the Taunt's the most annoying minion because then Alex can't go face regardless. I think I would Moonfire the Taunt, but it's like Bozzzton is actually going to go for the Malygos Moonfire on the Taunt regardless.
Here we go. I'm actually willingly engaging in a Jandis Mind Games discussion here.
Okay.
I would expect my opponent there to not put the illusion on the Taunt because Hero Power Guardian Animals is a possibility, but then you didn't Guardian Animals on the previous turn into the Shambhala turn, so maybe they're not considering that? Hard to say.
Yeah. Ooh. Going for potion. Okay. Revolving missiles. I think Bozzzton was potentially planning on germination on that Malygos.
Yeah.
Going to pay off for him though.
Fairly sure he wanted that giant dragon this game. 5 health, a lot more easy to deal with than 12.
Look at this from Warma. Does not care about that. That minion does not have +5 spell damage on its card text, therefore he does not care.
Does have 7 attack though. Put your opponent to 8? Question mark?
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna force trades, and it's one of the. When I mentioned potion last turn, a part of me did just wonder whether Nova was a bit of a consideration as well. I mean, potion is fantastic with Jandis on board, but are you expecting Jandis to live? And then outside of that, when is this potion actually doing tons of work? I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems very expensive for what you're actually going to get out of it for Warma, which is why I was just glancing at the Nova just in case.
I do agree, and I think that's an additional motivation for the play he made, where he went face instead of, like, anti-Wind Fury trading all his minions into this minion, so he then has more potion value over the future because he's kept his own minions alive. It does create a dangerous scenario, though, but the more I look at it, like, the more I'm quite frustrated that none of this quite works with the Alexstrasza line from Bozzzton's side, because, yeah, this is the problem, right, is that he needs to draw cards, so if he feels like he has to play Twilight Runner first, but then if he plays Twilight Runner first, there's no reason to attack face with the 7/5 because you're intending to Alexstrasza your opponent in the face anyway. So you then just kind of have to suck it up and accept that your opponent played well last turn by hitting you in the face, which always feels bad when you have to actually concede the point and make the trade for it for them. That just feels horrible when you're on the receiving end of that. I hated everything about that turn.
Yeah. If it was me, I'd still just Alex face, go face, and be like, I'm going to pretend you didn't play well.
Yeah.
Just be like, and then I'd lose. Here, the potion, with the help of its apprentice, can get some value here. The Jandis did live as well, so definitely something to be happy with for Warma. A little bit surprised he's not going for the potential spell discover first for these 1-Vs. Good old Stranglethorn.
Yeah, good old Alar as well. Also, he couldn't, right? His board's full now, so he couldn't have played anything else? There's nothing to trade into on the other side of the board?
Yeah. I guess if he always wants the Jandis. I just wondered how, with Vaporize in hand, with a potential extra spell, I wondered if there was any other options there, but I guess this does just dump a ton of power on board.
1 mana 2/5 drop seems significantly more powerful than anything else he had available that turn. Well,
potential of a Frost Nova could be powerful, though, that turn.
Well, Bozzzton is remarkably close here.
What to do?
Yeah, what I mentioned swipe earlier. It is so powerful.
There's no way, right? There's no way he did it. There's no way he did it. Okay.
There was a moment.
Second swipe.
Can just follow up with a Twilight Runner again this turn.
Yep.
Or do you feel he needs to draw? Or at least, sorry, draw now. I don't think so, right?
It's so tough, right? Because where does he find the swing turn? That's the problem. Like, sure, he can keep killing some minions and, you know, trading and everything else for as long as he wants. But as long as Warma can just keep refilling the board over and over and over, where does Bozzzton find the swing turn to actually start going face, like Alex Straza, his opponent, actually end this game?
Yeah, that potion has actually paid off a lot for Warma, hasn't it? Because it's given him, like, almost endless things to do right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wait, really? That wasn't an Antonidas? Okay. Fine.
I don't know, I was doing the quick Naga sandwich, just glance at the hand, just to triple check there was nothing valuable there to make 5.
No. Oh, Conjurer's calling now. 0 mana Giant coming down. Conjurer's calling, still available. Making us wait for it. Anticlimax in the end, to be honest.
Yep, I think he was just sat there thinking whether it was worth just Mana Cyclone instead to get a few more spells down. But yeah, that Conjurers could have literally just won him the game on the spot there as well. So I do like it. Innovate. Oh, well.
Okay.
That's a lot of mana. You can Omu swipe?
You can also Overgrowth first, then Omu, then refresh with the excess mana? In case he gets, like, Geppetto or something? Because then he can Geppetto, Mali, Bloom, Innovate, Swipe?
Mali's long gone.
Oh,
Mali
yeah, he's played it already. Yeah, right.
All he's got to go for, the best thing here is Ysera, right? Just to put portals in the deck.
Yeah. Either way, I do think this is the right way to do it with the Overgrowth into excess mana as the proc.
Time waits for no one.
I just didn't know whether... I didn't know whether he wanted it to actually go like Omu...
My dream is your nightmare.
Oh, I'm struggling. Okay. Yeah, as long as he swipes this turn, right? That was my priority number 1 for Bozzzton there. I was just trying to work out what, like, the best swipe would have looked like.
Yeah. And I was, like, erroneously thinking that Mali was still alive, but this exact sequence is why I thought it was originally important to do it that way, is because you see that extra card and then you have that 10 crystals refreshed, and you always have the Bloom and the Innovate to get you out of trouble. But regardless, now the last points of damage are going to come through with the lab partner, double spell damage, or double damage from the spell damage, I should say. Ping to the face. And looks like there's a BM Violet Spellwing coming out on top of everything else. But regardless, as going to be game 1 over to the French player here. Warma switches off the Turtle Mage from last week, which admittedly he did have a very memorable performance with, as he was able to pick up a win in a game where he had all of his turtles flicked away by fellow Frenchman Felkane. But he switched off, maybe just trying to remain unpredictable a little bit, switch it up, make sure no one gets any reads on him, switches onto the Tempo Mage and looked very comfortable on that as well.
Yeah, looked pretty solid, didn't it? And I think that's one of those odd games there from Druid where they have so much ramp without getting those payoff cards. And you do have to wind back to only 1 overflow in this Malygos build, which means you are less likely to draw it. Of course, there is the Geppetto, which it acts like a kind of card draw mechanic there just to get into your deep tools. But I think when he was forced into the Malygos and that Malygos was answered, that's when things became extremely difficult for Bozzzton. But there's a whole series yet to play out as Warma still needs to win 2 more games or Bozzzton can fight back. We are going to go to a quick break though while we get ready for our game number 2. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I would rather be the funniest person in the room at this very moment. Long term, it would be better to be the smartest, but it's just about the moment.
Funniest person in the room.
Funniest.
I would rather be the most funniest person in the room.
I'd probably rather be the most intelligent person. Actually, if you're the most intelligent person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That's what they say.
If you're the most intelligent person in the room, then you're probably also gonna be very sad. But if you're the funniest person in the room, then you're gonna make everybody laugh and everybody's gonna have a great time. So I'd rather have that.
Yeah, I'd still rather be the most intelligent and the most funny person in the room.
I think other people are more funny than me, and I would rather be just the smartest guy there, and if we play a game, I would rather just outplay them.
Intelligence is very nice, but happiness is more important, and I think also actually with happiness or with a lot of intelligence comes together as well.
I think I'm both, so... That's a nice answer.
We are back, and it's Warma versus Bozzzton. We're going to go into game number 2. Bozzzton taking a loss there on that druid. All the ramp in the world could not save him. And Warma taking a victory with one of the first times we've seen him play Tempo Mage after his little flirt with the Turtle Mage deck over the past few weeks. But he does still have that Demon Hunter and his Priest left to go. And this again, this 2-off Priest looking to be okay. I am slowly being more convinced by this build versus the Highlander Priest. I was still thinking Highlander was the better version as an all-round deck, but for me, this has been looking pretty positive. So,
if you needed any more convincing, Raven, if you build it exactly like this, it costs a clean 10,000 dust, which is just incredibly pleasing all around. I'm going to switch to this list immediately.
And also no one-offs. So.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just the perfect deck in every way. As Bozzzton now is going to take his turn on the Tempo Mage. He is playing the orange build with the Kobold Spellkin Arcane Breath, which again had the highest win rate of any build in Masters Tour Montreal this past weekend, but was brought by the smallest sample of players, so it can't really be held down as conclusive. But there is a growing swell of support with even Casey, who was kind of teasing Orange about the build on Twitter originally, actually switching to this build for this week as well.
How fickle some Hearthstone players are. Never stick to the guns.
Yeah.
But yeah, this again, there are benefits and drawbacks. Like for me, I've played a chunk of like many builds of this, I guess. But the Spellkin, like it feels so hit and miss for me, honestly. It feels like it is mainly there as an activator for Arcane Breath, and like the actual like playing a Spellkin on curve, for example, in against a lot of opponents, just feels pretty bad as a 5-mana 3/5. I think there are only certain situations in which it really looks impressive, for me at least.
That's interesting. I kind of feel the exact opposite. Like, I always feel really happy playing it on 5 a lot of the time. Like, I feel like it just has,
like... I'm dead if I play it on 5. Like, I've already died, honestly.
Well, you see, Raven, what you should have done is kept Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then you would have already dealt with the entire early game situation by having a Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then you can refill with the Kobold Spellkin afterwards, you see.
I see. You mentioned I throw Sorcerer's Apprentice sometimes means that I always throw it away and never have it in the early game.
Yep.
Okay, I know how it is. I understand. Here, though, Bozzzton's opening hand is looking pretty solid. I guess he's going to pass and wait for turn 2 to go Lab Partner and 1 Thief as a combo.
Time runs out on me. I wonder.
Certainly looking that way. I'm sure he will deliberate for all but one of the seconds that he has available to him this turn. Actually, no, he is just going to play it straight out. Wow, okay.
Yeah, very surprised here. Does this have any lead onto a bit of a committal to a Sorcerer's Apprentice turn then, next turn? Is this anything he's ever going to consider?
Let me have a look at the build from... Well, yeah, I mean, that changes a lot, right? But I was going to look at the build from Warma and just check if there's any Penance, Holy Smite kind of stuff in there that you would want to be considering, and there isn't, of course. As we mentioned, this is just a kind of clean 2-ofs and legendaries list, so it does kind of encourage curving out aggressively because the early answers aren't there, and you will be able to get a lot of early damage through if you do play out in that fashion.
Oh, and we get to see a potential strong play here with Sorcerer's Apprentice, Ray, 1 Thief. Not necessarily in that full order, but you know what I mean.
But this just do that whole turn without the Apprentice still, though. The Apprentice would only discount him the 2 mana it costs to play the Apprentice, but that's where Bozzzton's head seems to be at. He does seem to be very much just playing for maximum tempo this turn.
Oh, Arcane Intellect, big pickup. That could have gone quite wrong, honestly. If the offerings weren't any way to continue to draw cards or generate cards, then that could have been very, very scary indeed. But I do actually like the Apprentice, because otherwise, it's kind of just like waiting and waiting, and he needs a way to discount that Mana Giant pretty quickly.
I'm so interested in this from Bozzzton because it's so far removed from how I tend to play this matchup. But not in a, like, this is bad, because I can see it working, right? Like, right before me, I can see that this is doing powerful things.
Ooh, it's your Explorer. Nice pickup. Doesn't look like it's anything else to me. Bozzzton taking his time and going for Thalnos. Okay, I'm joining you, Sol. I was with Bozzzton, but now I'm with you. I'm confused.
Or Ray of Frost is a double discount on that Mana Giant and just deals with the Twilight Drake straight up this turn if he just wants to put it on the later base.
Yeah, double discount and an insane amount of damage. Wait, what? Health is the Twilight? Actually?
I believe it is 9? 7.
Oh, it's
wow,
7?
how's that wrong? Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. I was looking at the value of actually just going Frostbolt instead. You could still play Thalnos, it does 6. Does this actually clear it off for you unless he wants to trade one of these minions? It's obviously 1 less discount on the Giant, but I think at this point with Bozzzton's hand, 1 mana doesn't make too much difference, whereas he could have just traded the 1 Thief in here instead.
Right. Trades down the Solarian before anything particularly nasty can happen to him. But
That's
Warma
it, right? And if
does have the Cabal Acolyte coin available to him here, but we're still just leaving Sorcerer's Apprentice up for another turn here.
It's not even a threat, Sol. There's no cards in hand, will you? I'm joking, of course, before you jump at me.
I mean, I like it, right? Like, the only real threat to answer it this early is Renew, where Renew can find the Penance or the Holy Smite or the Breath of the Infinite, like all the cards that Warma doesn't have available. Outside of that, it's Wild Pyromancer as a 2-of, which, you know, Warma did have coin, so it was Pyro coin, basically anything. to be able to clear up the board state. But Bozzzton's definitely taken a very aggressive approach here.
Oh, interesting. Does he trade the Thanos in before playing the...
Go!
Okay.
Go, 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 go! Gee. Get that Draconic down before things go wrong. Okay, good.
Yep. It's Conjurer's Calling.
Giant Conjurer's Calling. Likely Combustion just to clear the way after that. Push the damage. Seems strong.
Could just play the Cyclone, right?
Runs out on me.
Is Conjure Cyclone not just okay?
It is. It is. Okay, now it is. Now you're cycloning. Now you are 100% cycloning. Because the problem I was just leading into is, obviously Cyclone is good here to give you resources, which you just don't currently have. But it gives up the Sorcerer's Apprentice, which, you know, Apprentice has done a lot of work up until this point, and maybe you're just happy to do that. But the fact that he hits the Hulking Overfiend in that scenario is absolutely insane, because then he can just have the best of both worlds. And it's gone green, Raven, and we know what that means. It means it is switching sides. Warma says, Hulking Overfiend, welcome to the team.
Yeah, that's rough for Bozzzton, but I am still just staring at the fact that he got box.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that.
Okay.
We'll deal with that later.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh! Oh! Is Bozzzton just the best tempo mage player in the world? Is that what we've learned?
I think so. But nothing else, Sol. It just looks like it. It's hard to...
No,
never mind. He got 12-12.
He sucks. He rolled a 0-0, yeah.
I'm sure he'll generate another Conjures. It'll be fine. Or silence it somehow or something.
This Hulking Overfiend has now officially become a problem for the next turn. But probably only for the next turn, because then Solarium Prime can come along and solve all problems.
Right. And that's the thing, right? This Apprentice dies. It makes the Power of Creation 8, of course, but that Prime perfectly turned up to just slot in that turn 7.
Time runs out on me.
I guess? Worried about Apotheosis? Does that ever change much with trading versus going phase?
Yeah, I mean, you can just put 3 damage on it now, which kind of dramatically reduces the trading it can do on the other turn, which does seem pretty reasonable, to be honest. Oh, it's such a disaster. The Supreme Abyssal, it's just such a disastrous minion to roll of Conjurer's Calling. Like, every time it happens. It's just the worst.
At least it can get some work done in this specific circumstance, right? Like there are going to be minions for it to trade into, and they might even be very big minions as well. So, by no means saying it is a good outcome, but it's better than there being like no minions for it to trade into against certain decks. Warma says no. I want a 0-0 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out when you're not being the aggressor in the matchup, 0-0 is legitimately a 12-12.
So, silence somehow onto the 12-12 and then Wind Fury? Let's go. Something like that can happen from a box, everything?
Yep, sure. Prime, box, silence, Wind Fury. Seems good.
Easy lethal.
Oh! Oh! Ah!
The best tempo mage player in the world.
I mean, you might as well, right? What else are you doing with it? Just kill the other 12-12, yeah. Yeah, clap. I agree. I agree.
He loves it. Oh, so funny. Hey, this just gives him more 3-3s.
And you get a 3-3, and you get a 3-3.
Oh, the sound!
Oh, please.
Stop it.
Less of that. When did Hearthstone get this dumb? I blinked and Hearthstone just became really dumb.
I don't know.
What to do? What to do?
Bozzzton thinking about the Spellkin 1-mana spell line here because he's 7 out of 8 on his Learn Draconic right now, so this gets him a 6/6 anyway, so this is a pretty comparable power level. Wait, you don't want to discount these, right? You want to spend 1 mana on a spell this turn, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, an Elemental looks quite good, doesn't it? With that mana reservoir.
Well, he doesn't immediately have the second one to pay it off.
Oh, no,
is the
yeah,
problem.
not necessarily to play it now. I just mean using the mana to just get the Elementals live seems fine. Because he probably wants a ping here, I imagine, as well. So if you just played Elemental Allies ping.
Yeah.
Someone's out on me.
He just knows he can do it. Oh.
I'm very curious why he doesn't want a 6/6 this turn. Okay.
In Bozzzton, at least soon, does not need much more damage actually, because he is still sitting on that Pyroblast.
Right.
Is that what he was doing, setting up for Pyroblast next turn?
Well,
if the 3/2 doesn't die?
I guess, sure.
I mean, it's or box.
But you can still do that by playing a 1-mana spell and then playing Sorcerer's Apprentice afterwards, and then you'd have a 6/6.
That's true. At least Mike can help. Oh, my plan's ruined!
Okay, gotta be Power Creation now. Oh, yes. More beasts. That's what this game needs.
I was actually looking because that Conjurers is fresh, right? So he could have just conjured the Spellkin twice.
That's fair.
Like from Power of Creation, you're not having a huge jump, especially because you get the extra minions from Conjurers there. I did just wonder for a second. There are big outcomes, though, right, from Power of Creation that could have just won him the game that turn. So I think it makes sense in general. Just he did have the option there, reasonable minion to target.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good
Or he
call.
could have actually, funnily enough, conjured and then conjured the dragon, right? 2 6s and 2 5s.
Yeah, it's true too.
I do like some true statements now and again. Look at Warma, yes! I love that he's like president. It's like, oh,
it was the moment of processing time where it was like mind vision. Pyroblast appeared. He looked at his health. He was sad.
That is going to be the game. He goes for the steal, but knows it does not matter. Bozzzton. Wonder if Bozzzton has any inkling that Warma knows this is coming.
Shut up, Bozzzton. You're no one is falling for that bait. No one believes you are ever considering playing that puzzle box, Bozzzton. Nice try, buddy. You're gonna have to get out of bed earlier in the morning to get me with that one.
Yeah, the fact it was pre-attack as well, so it's not as if he left himself on left him on 1 health or something silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is going to be the game there. Bozzzton with a pretty ludicrous opening there with the mage, getting a lot of work done. That evocation paying off a lot. Although there were some questions towards the end of that game. Regardless, he did get the victory, so it's going to be even 1-1 now. Him getting a win with that mage, and still a lot to play for here for Warma and Bozzzton.
Yeah. Interesting game. Very, very interesting game. I'm certainly going to try out that aggressive strategy. It's hard to test because I think that's specifically engineered where you're looking at an open decklist scenario where there's no penance, there's no Holy Smite, there's no Breath of the Infinite. Just against random priest on ladder, they could be Highlander and they could have all of those cards available to them in the early game. So it becomes then a little bit more difficult to go for that strategy. But I'll definitely be trying it out and testing it because, you know, literally just Sorcerer's Apprentice as a Bloodfen Raptor essentially was a pretty interesting line to go for there, and it paid off in spades for Bozzzton. So definitely, you know, supported the way he played out in the opening. What I won't be trying though is the not having a 6/6 for no reason. That's the part that I really can't quite get my head around in the later turns there.
Yeah, there were some moments towards the end of the game where things maybe looked a little bit trickier than they needed to be, but it also felt like a bit of a dull game from Warma, honestly. And I don't mean that aimed at him in any real way, but he just didn't have tons of options that game. He wasn't really given the opportunity to get much done, right? Because of the sort of oppressive opening there from Bozzzton. Does look like it's going to be Bozzzton on his Priest, though, of the Highlander variety. And Warma is going to be locking in his Demon Hunter for this next game. But just looking at this Priest list with that Wretched Shooter and, most importantly, that Mindrender and Lucia, we did see get at least a good amount of work done in the previous series in this matchup.
Yeah, and this is basically the same build as well. There may be 1 or 2 cards different, but just at an eyeball, it looks exactly the same.
To me, yeah.
With the Consume Magic, Altruist, the build that we saw have some success in Masters Tour at the weekend in Montreal. French players do seem to have picked up on this list and gone with it largely here. Warma is looking to try to do a little bit better than the last French matchup we saw, although it was Zim on the Priest side of that one who put together the Clutch Lucia play at the end to be able to seal out the game.
Yeah, and a pretty solid opening mulligan there from Bozzzton, I believe. Even just having a 1-drop is nice, and now he goes 1 into 2 into the potential 3 as well. So this is looking as good as it's going to get, at least for the early stages of Bozzdton's Priest here.
No 1-drop on 1 for Warma, but he does have options now going forward. Chaos Strike will immediately give us some kind of idea of where Warma's head is at in this matchup as to what the target is here, because it seems unlikely that he would be coining out Hero Power to deal with the Sethic, so he just goes with the Soul Shear instead. Save Chaos Strike for a rainy day now. Look for Mana Feeder Hero Power on the coming turn.
Yeah, looks pretty solid to me. For Bozzzton, does have this Apotheosis, which again is one of those weird situations of does he want to just play a 3/3 or does he want to buff this and not really gain tons of healing back from it? But he also does have the Raise Dead potential just to get the Sethic back, but he also doesn't need to do that this turn. So really it's just between this Kaj and an Apotheosis for me.
I think I like the Apotheosis here. 5 health minion this early is pretty sweet, right? Pretty hard to interact with. Coin Marrow Slicer doesn't really get there. Also encourages your opponent to kill the minion, so you then get immediate Raise Dead value sooner rather than later. I think there's argument both ways, right? Because any argument I could make for Consume Magic, for Apotheosis here, is kind of an argument for Kaj as well, because I was about to raise the point of going for a big greedy Apotheosis isn't necessarily game winning when they're playing the Consume Magic list. But I was making this point in the last series. It's like the 2 cards that Consume Magic is exclusively very good against is Apotheosis and Kaj, right? So just getting minimal value out of either of them here seems fine, because later on you could just end up getting punished by Consume Magic anyway.
Right. I think what was important, and I would have been shocked if it would have happened, is that Bozzzton didn't just like heal, pass, and try and take it slow.
Yeah.
That is how you lose. It's important that he made an additional play on the board to make things as awkward as possible for Warma, and now suddenly, not that this 2 damage swing is making or breaking the game, but that's a Warblades into a 1/2. Is not really what Warma wants to be doing with his turns.
No, drawing dragons with Cleric of Scales in hand is exactly what Bozzzton wants to be doing with his turns, though.
What is Elun's will?
Could also go for Raise Dead and have additional options as well. Wouldn't hate it.
Yep, get Sethic and Disciple back here.
Thy blood be born again.
All right. Pretty good. Pretty good minion off the rip, really.
Oh, okay. Decision point. Penance, spot removal, or Soul Mirror as an answer to Militia. Guaranteed.
I like having Soul Mirror. Not drawing Soul Mirror over the course of the game is a good way to lose this matchup, in my experience. So Bozzzton disagrees. Because there's just that one card, right? There's Sociologist, which requires almost exactly Soul Mirror every time it comes down as the priest. You don't really have other ways to deal with it in your deck. So I think largely everything else, you kind of have a lot of redundancy in your deck with how things deal with other things. You know, if there's a small minion, maybe you can penance it, maybe you can steal it with Cabal Acolyte, maybe you can ignore it and you just have the healing to compensate for it later. Sociologist, if it comes down with 4 or 5 3/3s and you don't have Soul Mirror, that just feels like a way to lose the game.
And honestly, for me, as an additional bonus, the Murazond is normally such a great follow-up to that Soul Mirror as well, because the Demon Hunter normally loses board, so they then make another big turn to start continuing to fight back, if they have the cards, of course. And then you Murazond to like mirror that turn also. It would be a good 1-2 punch there for Bozzzton, but it does go for the Penance, the more immediate value here. And he gets the knowledge that maybe he wished he picked Soul Mirror now.
Yeah, it's probably just coin.
Yeah.
The other cards seem kind of garbage right now.
Unless he's having an ultra read, or even like, seer level option here of going Blade Dance, because he knows he's going to save that Murazond for a weapon.
Yeah.
And have like a 10-mana Murazond Blade Dance.
He did get value, though, out of the Penance immediately in defense of Bozzzton. Picked up the Lazul, so it fit him very nicely with his curve. Keeping himself nice and healthy. I do get the philosophy. I talked, again, I think it was in the last series, about how this feels like a matchup where the Demon Hunter does need to stick some minions and get some repetitive minion damage, because you just count up all the damage in the deck, it just doesn't get there against the priest healing, so you need damage from minions, and having a Penance in your hand in the early game can prevent a lot of that from happening.
Yep. And he's not looking fantastic once this Militia's been played here for Warma, though. Really going to be looking for a skull in the very near future.
Yep.
Let me change your mind.
Bozzzton just going to go for a straightforward turn here, and I don't mind this at all. Looks very solid. Just grab the 4/5, get it on the board. Take away some of that minion pressure here. I do like the trade on Kayn, though. I don't see a huge reason to just let it live in case you get Blade Dance next turn, then Kayn's just still there.
Yeah, so you 3 of the cards in your opponent's hand, right? They're still there. Sociologist, Coin, Blade Dance. You know those 3 options from the Lazul are still there, so I don't necessarily think it's particularly likely that you get Blade Dance this turn based on knowing those 3 cards, and there's only a couple of other options that could be available. You're probably getting Coin Sociologist is what you have to expect. And here's the problem, right?
Yep.
That 2-3 could have been alive the whole game, connecting with Bozzzton's face. Wouldn't have mattered in comparison to this.
Really tough one here. There is Cabal Acolyte with Shadow Word Death on the 5/5 to steal a 1/2. It feels weak, do not get me wrong, but it's something. Puts a taunt in the way that requires a hero power to help one of the minions punch through. Doesn't feel great, but I don't think any of the options here for Bozzzton feel great.
You want to take a ride with me on some next level plays here, Raven?
Sethic Death, you looking at?
Find a way to build a board that your opponent wants to Blade Dance. So your opponent Blade Dances it, and then you Murazond next turn.
What? Yeah, you've been hanging out with me too much, Sal.
I mean, it's a pretty desperate situation, right? Is that, if your opponent just goes like Twin Slice, Blade Dance or something in that scenario, if you just play a couple of minions and then you can then Murazond it back and you get it in the right order, like maybe that digs you out? I don't know.
That's true, but I think it's more likely like the Murazond this turn does more of a consistent job. Like after some level of removal, so you're not taking as much damage. Because the problem is the second Blade Dance is cast first, you just lose the game.
Yeah,
whereas
100%.
this might give you a bit more of a chance.
100%. I was certainly in crazy next level plays at that point because nothing looked particularly attractive. Bozzzton was able to clear up quite a lot with the Galakron, though, obviously having hit the double invoke from the Raised Dead early on the Disciple, but did miss the 5/5. But that does now at least still give him a Shadow Word Death target to be getting on with. Yep.
They even commit to this Acolyte, similar to the turn I suggested before. Now with a bit more mana, can get some more value here. And still has a coin as well if something good comes from the Sethic. Okay, not horrible, honestly. Not the best, but...
Now we will certainly see the Blade Dance. Bozzzton knows that we will certainly see the Blade Dance this turn.
You don't pick the ones, see?
Really honestly wants double jump here, I think, for one from these one makers.
Yeah, double jump and twin slice. Sorry, did I say double jump and twin slice? I meant Demon Companion and Philosophy. How silly of me.
Hey, Demon Companion is not bad.
It's
Philosophy does suck.
Yeah. It's 1 damage. 1 damage is 1 damage. And there's nothing really been played here that's going to support a Murazond line for Bozzzton.
Yeah, no weapon or twin slice, which means although the Blade Dance looks like it could have been nice with no weapon damage. Yep, not going to be the case. It might just have to be a Cabal with Apotheosis to steal the 1/2.
Ugh.
Removes a good chunk of damage. It makes these trades a little bit worse. You do have an Apotheosis minion.
Yeah.
It's something.
Still the
feel
Consume
good,
Magic to be feared, though. Both the natural one that's in the deck and a randomly generated 1-mana spell in your opponent's hand right now that could be Consume Magic. Based on my experience in testing this versus Derek, always is Consume Magic, regardless. Well, I mean, that's just the game trying to tell you something, right?
Hey, just do it. Wait.
Gonna coin double Acolyte and then Scheme to double Steal. Okay. Reduced by 1, reduces it to 2, and then you steal both minions on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
It's fine.
This does give him a potentially active Apotheosis, but it still runs the same risk of, well, if these are dealt with, then I guess this is 2 taunts that have to be dealt with instead of 1, which means it's a little bit less susceptible to silence.
Chaos Strike, that's 2 damage that can go face.
Oh!
Consume Magic? Not quite.
Wait, isn't it?
I think so. Is it? What do you see?
Hang on, let me just double check.
Blade Dance
No,
hits?
it's not quite right. Oh no, he's not going to do it. Wait, am I missing something here? Yeah, okay. I was missing something there. He can get through. He puts 3 through. There we go. I thought I see it, and I definitely messed that up there. But most importantly, Warma did take the win. And that was it. That was a tricky one for Bozzzton, but I think it is very clear to see the impact of not taking Soul Mirror in the matchup. We did see the penance. The penance killed a minion. It healed, of course. There was use out of that card. It wasn't just sat in his hand all game. But the Soul Mirror answers the one consistent problem you have that you don't have an answer to any other way. You were pointing that out where you, like, against Militia, there just aren't that good cards that you have in your deck naturally that can deal with it. The Soul Mirror always deals with that Sociologist Militia every single time, no matter what. So I do think that was the big point there for Bozzzton. He could have avoided a lot of damage if he just went for it.
Yeah, and I do think it's a thing that comes with experience in the matchup as well, is that, you know, you play that matchup as Priest of any variety, and you get to a point where you feel kind of comfortable to it, but you learn to fear Sociologist, and it does feel like that's something to have a contingency plan against, because, again, nothing in your deck really works. Like, Murazond can't deal with it because it doesn't replicate the Battle Cry, and even if it did, you wouldn't have any Soul Fragments in your deck. Like, nothing nothing that you have lines up in the way that, you know, any redundant effect you have to deal with early game boards. So, you know, I called it at the time. This isn't hindsight. You know, you can say it was cast division to a degree because I'm staring at the sociologist in my opponent's hand, but they draw it pretty consistently, right? When they start casting Chaos Strikes and Skulls, they get through their deck eventually. It doesn't always come down with 4 or 5 3/3s, but it comes down and it requires an answer a lot of the time. So, big fan of making sure you pick up the Soul Mirror in that spot.
Yeah, and it looks like Bozzzton is going to move back over to his Malygos Druid here to be able to fight versus Warma's final list, which is going to be his Priest, which again is there's 2 of. And this is definitely a tough matchup here, Saul. The Malygos Druid, honestly, we started seeing because Priest was dominant in the meta a little bit earlier on.
Yeah, this is certainly one of the matchups where the stats do bear out that Malygos Druid is actually worth bringing in this scenario, because Mali is 54% in Grandmasters versus Priests of all variety, whereas all other Druids are only 38% combined against all Priests. So that is a pretty big difference. And as I was saying earlier, I think to bring Mali Druid, I think right now, for me to justify bringing Mali Druid, I'd have to be on some kind of leave-up Warrior and expect my opponent to have Warrior and Priest in their lineup kind of situation.
Right.
That's where I'd generally be looking at overall.
It is scary though, isn't it? Because in all the other matchups, I feel the other builds of Druid are so much better. Like the second that whiffs, the second you maybe not to the same effect, but end up like Chonsu, and it whiffs a little bit where your opponent doesn't run that, you're in some pretty big trouble with that list.
Nothing doing right now in hand for Bozzzton. He's considering.
He's considering it, yeah.
Yeah, the implications of just playing a 5-drop this turn.
You know what? I don't blame him. It is pretty powerful versus Priest this early in the game, and he doesn't have any ramps, so these aren't getting played for the for a long time yet. Anyway,
yeah,
I don't know. That was actually a tough call, even though it might have looked a bit silly.
I do agree it was worth thinking about because, yeah, he'd be overloading into his turn 3, which right now is a complete whiff anyway, potentially. But he can still kind of do that same thing, where if he wants to continue with that idea, he could save and innovate and just bloom out one of the beasts on turn 3 anyway. But then you're overloading into your turn 4, which means that you can't then innovate out another beast.
And now he's just facing down a Hothead, which makes any of this look a lot worse. But of course, if he had, say, put out the Lake Thresher or the Teacher's Pet, then Hothead is still a problem response from Warma. I think it was just good he got hold of a dragon that early in the game, because normally you're expecting like one Maker, Sethek, a Kaj potentially, which I guess is a bit of a fear factor for the following turn, but all very farmable in most circumstances by a Lake Thresher.
Love this. Good understanding of the matchup so far from Warma. Just maximum tempo. He picked up the tempo option. He's then continued to play tempo. He's immediately just cycled Renew, trying to find something to do here for the following turns and keep up tempo. And that Grave Rune is looking kind of attractive here, honestly, in terms of sticking a board state.
Yeah, we finally going to get to see one, Sol, because I feel like every time over this weekend I've suggested Grave Rune, it's just never happened. Maybe it will in this one.
The Hearthstone gods are waiting for you to be able to pronounce the word rune before you're actually allowed to see one happen.
Rune.
Okay, good. So we'll see it now this game. Congratulations.
Just like Shadow Word, right?
Yeah, exactly. Same word. Yeah, no difference. Can't tell which one of us is trolling anymore.
Perfect. My plan has worked. I do wonder now if Bozzzton is already starting to consider any Omu shenanigans, or if he's just happy to sit back. Because the problem is the matchup is favored for the Druid. But at this point, Bozzzton does have to start thinking, well, there is a 4-6 and a 2-3 on board that you can't really deal with right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to just get beaten up. You can't just be like, I'm favored. I'm going to sit back and draw my deck and then combo in for lethal.
Right.
Like 15 turns down the line. Well played from Bozzzton.
Really? You're giving it out like that, huh?
Just don't look, Bozzzton. gonna make you feel worse if you're feeling bad now.
I actually took your advice! That's amazing! Oh, I'm so happy. Yep. This deck looks unplayable when it draws like this, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously I know the disgusting things that it can do, but man, does it need an overgrowth to get the party started most of the time.
Or even just, you know, as usual, a guardian animals or an overflow. Just something you know can really get you in the game, even if you have to wait for it a little bit. But there's just none of that. I guess it's nature studies, which I think is a good start here. Nature studies can unlock everything.
That is true.
But this is close to what I was talking about, and again, I know the reasons why, but it's just yet again I'm like, do you just play Broom in Mali Druid? Is this just a thing? Because it always feels like
so
in Druid in general, Broom is just so powerful because when your cards don't do the best things, like Guardian Animals specifically, it gives them that effect. There's a reason these minions are good with Rush, so why not give them Rush more often? Is the way I think about it, even if it's not your main build.
There is the Guardian Animals off the nature studies, though. That is a huge deal.
And he has the bloom to negate the kind of issue of the studies that you have there.
Does have to bloom it out here. Can't just use the innovate. Yeah, I take your point, and maybe in like the slim down version of the deck where you remove the Geppetto, there's room to sneak a Broom in there, but you can't play Broom in your Geppetto deck, surely, right? Like.
Sometimes you can rush your Geppetto, Sol.
Surely you can't play Broom in your Geppetto deck. Which honestly, like, to me sounds like an argument not to put Geppetto in your deck, because I think Broom is a better card than Geppetto.
Agreed. These hotheads, though, are just getting work done right now, aren't they?
Yeah. Huge. Like, they're just the right size against Druid. Like, 4/6 is just big enough to be awkward, just big enough to be threatening.
Oh, okay. I did wonder just for a second then whether that was actually just going to be initiation on the runner and then just go face. Like, that seemed pretty good.
Okay.
But it's going to go a little bit wider, put that Kaj on there. It's a great voice line.
Yeah, it's pretty good, actually.
And now Bozzzton got to a Guardian Animals, played it, and it's still not really paying off for him.
Nope. He's now exhausted his beast package again, because that same dynamic, right? Because you're playing Mali Druid and because you're playing Geppetto, you want the Geppetto to hit the impactful minions, so you play a slimmed down version of the beast package, of which Bozzzton is now fully exhausted. He played one Teacher's Pet, he summoned 2, and then he has the remaining Lake Thresher in his hand.
It is the problem. You cut consistency on one hand to give yourself a crazy out sometimes or potential, right? And the more I see it, the more I just think I would rather have Guardian Animals just be better more often than have a Geppetto. It's tough, especially in instances like this. Bozzzton is just going to go for this overgrowth and say, you know what, this turn sucks. I'll try harder next turn with more mana. Or it seems more doable, which I do agree with, actually.
Warma here can keep on pushing.
Yeah, and he even has that embalming now as well. So he can just, yet again, make this board more difficult to deal with.
Apotheosis again.
I was even staring at Soul Mirror, because it's the one thing he doesn't have.
Oh, okay, we're just going to have the same argument as last game again about how Soul Mirror just solves problems, nothing else does.
Yeah.
See, there's another problem this game, Raven. That's my opponent being alive, and I don't want them to be alive anymore.
Those pesky opponents.
I know.
Oh, just another hothead. Oh my. Wait, was that guaranteed? Has only 2 minions died this game?
It's a very good question.
Oh.
You might be right, actually.
If
You might
that was
be right.
guaranteed, you know what dire situation this is for Bozzzton, because that shouldn't be guaranteed at this point in the game. Wow. Now let me just do a quick check. Nope, no brooms, so this Thresher sucks. Yep, okay. It would have literally had to have been Malygos, right? Malygos swipe that turn with the bloom and double innovate. Even though I know he drew the innovate, of course, but I'm just saying that that's the extent that what Bozzzton would have needed to do.
Well, he doesn't need the second innovate, right? Mally, 1 mana remaining.
Oh,
innovate,
he's on 10,
swipe.
yeah. He overgrowth last turn, yeah.
So a Mally top deck there maybe could have got the party started from Bozton's perspective, but even then, like, the freaking Kaj has a Twilight Runner in it. The Crimson Hothead on the right has Reborn. Like, that still just doesn't clear enough of the board to get him out of this. He has to dig. He has to Omu combo right now and just dig.
Okay, should Priest just be playing Hothead? That's my next question.
There are lists that do play it.
This one game of Hearthstone is convinced. You know what? I'm going to put Hotheads in my mage list instead of Spellkin. That's where I'm at right now. This one game has convinced me. Hothead, best card in the world right now.
Reactionary as always, Raven.
Yep. So 13 damage, unless I'm miscounting.
It's like 13 to me.
Oh! The initiation on the Omu. We go for Spellkin in a fire for lethal.
Yeah, exactly. I think that
Just need to make room though, right? His hand is
worthwhile. Yeah, but he can also just do this first, right?
Yes.
And then just use something that he picks up here. Might just pick up lethal off the Sethic. Doesn't do so. So now he can just refresh crystals. I mean, use your hero power just for the sake of it. No? Okay.
I mean, he's not missing any health, right? So
no, he's not. It's just, technically efficient to use your hero power.
Play more Hotheads. You have the mana. 2 more Hotheads, please.
So now Spellkin into Inner Fire. Still gets him out. Or he could just,
Yes,
like,
I mean, sure. Insane.
It's a good point, right? Like, how much do you actually need to get lethal right now over just opening up your own chain of 7-11s?
We could have still gone for it, right? Didn't he?
Power Feast! Power Feast! No! Disaster! It was all going so
Wait,
well!
Did he even finish the attacks? He didn't.
Oh no, Warma!
He missed damage.
Not like this! Not like this!
That's the thing as well. He attacked before he renewed as well, so he could have renewed first and gained the extra damage from there. Warma clearly unhappy with himself. I think the turn was so powerful that he could not handle it himself. But luckily for him, Bozzzton still in no position to respond to a board that strong. Warma takes the victory overall, and honestly, Subtle, like I mentioned, I think last week, we didn't really get to see too much of Warma in the first 3 weeks of Grandmasters during the Swiss rounds, but the more I see of Warma play throughout these weeks, the more I'm liking it, honestly. I think there was obviously the fumble at the end of the turn there, but I do like what I'm seeing from Warma. His ability to flip around his lineup as well as execute, again, funnily enough, if I ignore what you just saw, but execute different decks very well. I like it, honestly. I think Warma's looking to be pretty good this season.